and welcome back to another episode of Down with the Browns.
Let's get it.
He's back from assignment. He's back.
I'm back, baby, and I'm feeling lit.
So how we feeling, boys?
He left me here to deal with just Ed and Christian, and now we finally have another, voice.
Sensible.
Go ahead, say it.
Here.
Go ahead, say it.
Sensible
Go ahead, say it, Mac.
What?
Tell us how you really feel.
I'm just saying it was pure pandemonium. I'm trying to talk. You guys are dancing in the background. It was a whole mess, and that's what happens when you're not here. There's no rules.
What are you trying to say, Mac? Are you trying to say you're the only adult in the room?
Go ahead.
Yes, Ed.
Keep talking, Mac.
Honestly, well, no, because Manny's here. So there's.
Oh,
Brother, this guy stinks.
Yes. Speaking of news.
All right. Well, let's just go ahead and get into that first segment. It's Breakhead News.
That's right. It is Breakhead News. This is Ed in Columbus with Down with the Browns Breakhead News. This is day 52 of the Baker Mayfield hostage situation with no end in sight. The strangest part of this saga is the hostage negotiators are all in agreement. Nobody wants the hostage. We will continue to monitor the situation as events unfold. Don't expect anything sooner or later. Boomer. In other news, the Browns PR staff watched the classic movie Weekend at Bernie's and decided that they will use this strategy to rehabilitate Deshaun Watson's image. Weekend with Bernie is in full effect. Expect more dinner dates and appearances between Kozar and Watson. I, for one, am glad they've decided to do this, but I think Watson might get sick of Bernie saying, "You matter." Stay tuned. And finally, Jadeveon Clowney still hasn't signed with the Browns. I still think Clowney ends up a Brownie, but just like the youth of America, he's just lazy. I'm Ed in Columbus, and that was your Down with the Browns Breaking News.
Let's go.
Yeah. And,
Always.
Amazing. What could top that off? I think we need somebody shotgun a bang.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're ready.
You have in mind, Christian.
I think we got somebody here for that, actually.
What's up?
It's Andy Mansion. It's the man.
How's it going, everyone?
How we doing, Andy?
I am good. Manny, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much.
Max, I love you. Ed, I cannot wait to see what stupid shit you say today.
Thank you.
And Christian, I think we should do a bang right now.
Oh, bro, I'm not ready for this. I got a water. I'll chug that.
I'm not ready for this.
That sounds, stupid.
Let's get it.
Oh,
All right, hold on.
Start it up.
This is like the dog chug. This is turning into a dog chug.
This is a dog chug.
Everyone, please tune into the Dog Chug Wednesday at when are we on, Ed? 9
We have
o'clock?
special time.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Yes.
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Ooh. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. That's what we love to
Yes,
Got a
see.
beer
sir.
shower. Thank you for letting me come on.
Andy,
You're so welcome.
Hey,
we have a
man,
special
appreciate you
guest on
stopping in.
Wednesday. Tell everybody in the audience what's going on with the Dog Chug Wednesday.
We are gonna have very special guest, very famous Browns fan. Let's see. I'm gonna give you guys some clues, and we'll see if you can guess.
Let's do
Oh,
it.
He is he's anointed one of the biggest Browns fans in Browns history.
Mm-hmm.
He's a character. He dresses up.
ooh.
Is it Pumpkinhead?
It is.
Pumpkinhead!
Manny pulled it
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gonna wear the pumpkin head or?
I can't wait to find that answer out.
Yeah. Well, you got to tune in. You got to tune in, right?
You're
gotta
not
tune
even-
in.
you're
Tune
not
in.
even
Tune in.
ready.
Dog
Tune in.
chug.
You'll find
11
out.
o'clock Wednesday.
Tune in and you'll find out.
Hey, man, we appreciate you stopping by.
All right, have a great show. Can't wait to watch.
Absolutely.
Hi, Andy.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah. What
That's
a way to
amazing.
start off the episode.
What a way. What a way.
Bang, bang, bang.
Bang.
With a bang.
With a bang. Well, let's just go right into another bang, maybe a
Let's go,
bell
bud.
or two, How comfortable are you guys with the Browns receiving core?
You know what? And since I have been ridiculed by my fellow co-hosts on this show for wanting Jarvis and Odell Beckham back on this squad, I think I'm going to take it and say I really want another veteran piece right? I want one more veteran piece on this on this team when it comes to the wide receiver room. Because if you look about it, all right, yeah, everyone is saying Deshaun Watson has been doing everything with nothing, right? Or turning water into wine. You know what I mean? It's been spectacular what he's been doing in Houston. But here's the thing. I am still a little bit weary just because of injuries and how availability affected the Browns last season. So I understand exactly where everybody's coming from. We got Omari Cooper. You should feel comfortable with Omari Cooper, right? Here's the problem. Imagine, God forbid, I'm saying it right now, God forbid, Omari Cooper goes down, right? Are you comfortable with DPJ as your wide receiver one? Wasn't that one of our complaints back last season? Are you comfortable with Anthony Schwartz? Are you comfortable with – we don't know exactly what we're getting from David Bell. That's why I'm saying, hey, bring in somebody else who is a free agent. And I want to know – I know obviously there's a lot of glittery and like sparkly names out there like your Julio Jones, which I don't mind. I know Christian and I were talking about Julio. And how can you not love Julio, JJ? But here's the problem. Jarvis Landry's also out there. Will Fuller's out there. T.Y. Hilton, 33 years of age. Cole, don't vax me up. Beasley's out there. You got a T.Y. Hilton at 35, or Deshaun Jackson at 35 years old. So, I mean, you have options in free agency. We have options in free agency. That's all I'm saying. So here's the thing. If you want to bring in somebody who can help you guys out and make you feel a little bit more secure, why not do it? Why go in with guys who you say, hey, we want them to prove it. We want them to do whatever the case may be. Obviously, I'm not against bringing in a guy like Will Fuller, although he has a strong injury history and things like that. But again, my heart is to Jarvis Landry. That's looking like it's not going to happen. But Mac, I know you're filled with, putting me down about the idea of Jarvis Landry, no doubt. So I really want to hear you convince me if you're comfortable with the wide receiver room or not.
I'm comfortable with the first three.
Okay.
My wide receivers 1 through 3, obviously, Omari Cooper, a guy that's been Mr. Consistency since 2018, never had a catch percentage lower than 65%, never had a passer rating lower than 96, and never had a season less than 5 TDs. Superior route runner, a guy that's always going to either demand double coverage or he's going to be open and catch the ball. I mean, that's just plain and simple. Now you have DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was 3rd in the league last year in yards per catch. I think he can do even better this year. I mean, the crazy part about it is that DPJ almost had like a 600-yard season and, obviously was very efficient in yards per catch. But he still had a very low catch percentage. And I mean, was hampered with this groin injury. You could tell in some instances where he would go stretch his body and it just wasn't there. Like he wasn't healthy. So him as a wide receiver 2, I'm really looking forward to. He should have just never been wide receiver 1. You gotta be able to free him up and get those one-on-one coverages on the perimeter because that's what he does well. Now you have David Bell, who I would say he's clear-cut wide receiver 3 in my mind.
Right.
And I can tell you for 2 reasons. Number 1 is going to be production, and number 2, his just overall ball skills. He's a gamer. He's not that kind of guy that's going to wow you in the combine. And that's why he slipped. He ran this 4.6 40. And, what do you want? Do you want the guy that passed the eye test, or do you want the guy that goes out on the field and always comes back for the football? Do you want that guy that's, not afraid to stretch out for a catch? And David Bell is that kind of grinder, and he's a little bit bigger body too. At 6'1", so he's got bigger frame and longer arms and extremely well-rounded catch radius. So I would take that. Now, once you get past wide receiver 3, that's where the question mark says, or question marks are. Sorry, you have Demetric Felton, who had issues catching with his chest last year. You have Anthony Schwartz, who has not proven himself. Now, we had some discussions earlier, Christian and I, about how we disagree on this. But the reality is that, Anthony Schwartz, as fast as he is, did not show his promise anywhere on the football field last year. And I'm talking about as a wide receiver, as a ball carrier, and as a returner. When you have your total yards in 3 phases, receiving, rushing, and returning under 500 yards, it's just extremely underwhelming. And one thing that I can say about Anthony Schwartz is his yards per target is 17 yards. So it's like 17.3. but his yards per catch is 13.5. Now, how's that work? How is your depth of target so much more than your actual yards per reception? And he was statistically one of the worst wide receivers on the team last year. So for him to make that big jump and be so relied upon, it's kind of scary. Now, I will say this, the Browns kind of took a flyer on this underdrafted free agent, Isaiah Weston, okay? Through his collegiate career, 24 yards per catch. And he's been nothing but electric in college. Deep threat, bigger frame, 6'4", runs a 4.4 40. So they added speed to that room. So I think that's maybe a guy that can challenge Schwartz in that speed role, because they still need that deep threat. Whether it's got to be Schwartz, whether it's Weston, whether they go out and find somebody. I mean, they just need a deep threat, or we're going to see what we saw last season, to where everybody's just moving everybody up. There's no center fielder sitting out there. Nobody's scared of somebody getting behind them. So hopefully they find that deep threat.
Really quickly, before I, you touched on something about like Anthony Schwartz. Are you comfortable with him learning from Jakeem Grant potentially if he doesn't do well in the wide receiver role this year? Would you consider switching him over into more of a special teams guy and learning from Grant, or would you just cut ties with Schwartz? What would you do in that situation?
That's to designate a roster spot just to a kick returner. That's really risky. And he was worse than a touchback last season. Only averaging 21 yards per return. I mean, you can get that on anybody. So he wasn't
learning from anybody, though. What if he mentors with Grant, though? You know what I mean?
I mean, if he turns it around and he could show it on the football field, I'm all for it. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to burn a roster spot for a kick returner, but the problem is that he's got to move the chains here.
Right.
He's got to put the Browns in great field position every time he touches the football.
Right.
But it's the problem is that right now he's got to make such a giant leap to even make the team. Because there's going to be that wide receiver room is extremely crowded. So you have the first three that I mentioned. You have Anthony Schwartz. You have Demetric Felton, who's counted as a wide receiver, not counted as a running back. You have Jakeem Grant, and then as well as Isaiah Weston. So you have 7. They're probably only going to carry 5.
Right.
So it's getting real crowded in there. And he has to show promise that, because they're not going to burn. Like, think of Higgins last year. There's a lot of times where he was a healthy scratch because he wasn't good enough on the football field as a wide receiver to worth not playing special teams, because you kind of have to do both, because nobody's too good. Now, granted, you have those tier 1 players like Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Omari Cooper, guys that are, automatically, you don't even want to put them in for special teams. But most of these players, they have to play at least both, or they have to be so good at special teams where it's worth burning that roster spot.
Right. True. That's a very good point. I didn't actually think about that. And coupled with the fact that, you are in an offense that heavily uses tight ends, so David Njoku might spread off. But Ed, what do you think about this wide receiver room? Is this comfortable? Am I just delusional?
Well, you may be delusional, but I don't think it's about the wide receiver room. And here's why. Here's what I'm going to say about it. Okay. Now, yes, you put this wide receiver room up against other teams, you may be, it doesn't look so good. But here's one thing about a Kevin Stefanski offense. Last year you got 2 wide receivers and you got 3 tight ends, and you're playing that game, okay? Well, this year you'll have 3 wide receivers and you maybe only having 1 tight end, or you have 2 tight ends, but there'll be, a teacup formation here. Deshaun Watson, little movement, because you can actually see the whole field. So that's the thing. It's like I see what you're saying with the wide receiver room per se, but let's be real with it. Stefanski, you got Njoku, okay? Now everybody says he's going to get a contract extension. He's going to be a big player moving forward. Well, to me, a tight end like Njoku, just like a Mark Andrews, just like what they got in Kansas City, they're a wide receiver to some extent. Let's be real. You're not paying those guys because they're blocking. You're paying them because they're getting 100 yards a game and a touchdown every week. That's what you're doing. True. And I see this Browns offense in a similar fashion to that. And there's a guy named, I don't know what's his name, Kareem Hunt. Ever hear about him? Well, he likes to catch balls out of the backfield. So I don't know. You get him in space. There's a way to get around a poorly uncomfortable wide receiver room per se, and it says you have dogs. Now, we're not talking about pups. We got dogs as wide receivers. But because look, I like, even that Woods guy. We were banging on him last week, but I saw
Michael
some
Woods,
video
yeah.
Woods, and he can block downfield. And I know a guy
Yes.
named Hines Ward that used to play for Pittsburgh. You know what he was good at? Blocking downfield and making life miserable.
Talk to him.
So, you know what I'm saying? So I think that I'll trust in what Stefanski and Andrew Berry want to do with those wide receivers. And they may pick a guy just because he can block down the field and do different things. We may be saying,
Michael
this
Woods.
guy's got more athletic ability catching the football, but that's maybe not what they want. So I don't know.
That's how Donovan Peoples-Jones got on the field. So, I mean, you got to point there at.
Yeah.
So that's where I'll leave it at. So great conversation, but I'm comfortable. But I will say one thing. If you get me a Will Fuller, somebody that's comfortable with Deshaun Watson, that's played with him before, I ain't going to say no.
Yeah, I totally agree. But, I think that guys like Anthony Schwartz will benefit so much from a guy like Deshaun Watson over a broke shoulder Baker Mayfield.
That's true. That's true.
He's trying to get me in trouble here. I'm just going to
Let's be honest, though. Baker didn't play well last year, and that's why we got Watson now. None of the receivers really had great years anyways. Austin Hooper, stone hands, he's gone. Well, now we got David Njoku going into that tight end one.
I like Harrison Bryant still. Don't sleep on Harrison Bryant. I like that.
Oh, dude, he's going to
I
ball
like Harrison
out.
Bryant as well. I like what I've seen from him. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
Well, all three of his touchdowns came on scrambles and broken plays near the goal line. So, I mean, the guy can find the soft hole in the zone. And, Ed brings up a great point, kind of going around this wide receiver group and, with the struggles that they may have had. A guy like David Njoku, they're franchise tagging him. So, at the very least right now, they're franchise tagging him, which means that they consider him a top 5 tight end.
Right.
So, why not incorporate him in the offense as if he's a top 5 tight end? I mean, a guy that's putting his hand in the dirt and he's getting 9 yards per target, in a game where I mean, look at his 2 best games last year, Kansas City and against the LA Chargers, where he broke that 71-yarder, where it looked like a wild stallion running down the field. I mean, it's crazy, like how much bigger he is than some of these guys, and linebackers just flat out can't catch him in stride.
Yeah. Well, he is, yeah.
Well, only because it's on the top of my tongue here, but both those games were games to where he had more than 5 targets. You get him more than 5 targets, and he will score. So
that's true. And to go quickly off, because there's a bunch of stuff that people are arguing in the Twitter spaces and things like that. I just want to hear a quick answer from all of you guys. Do you consider Deshaun Watson sitting out a year a huge concern moving forward into this next season? Is sitting out a year something that takes off accuracy or precision or just decision making or whatever the case may be, or are you fine with that, or will he be fine? I just want to hear from everybody else, because everybody argues about that. Fans from other teams have been saying that about Deshaun and saying, he'll need some time off or whatever the case may be. Explain that to the viewers, the listeners. What should you be concerned about, if at all?
Manny, I want to answer that question real quick.
Ahead. Yeah, please.
All you got to do is go to one of your light switches in your house, okay? And then turn your head upside down, and then on is a no. So the answer is no. I'm not concerned.
I like that answer.
I love that answer. Short, sweet, to the point. Anybody, Christian or Matt, go ahead. I just let our listeners know.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ed. I'm not concerned at all. It's kind of like, Joe Burrow pretty much sat out the whole season the year before, comes back, Bengals are in the Super Bowl. That's how I kind of look at it. So
you don't forget how to ride a bike. You don't forget how to ride a bike.
Exactly. I think he may be a little rusty, his first 2 weeks, but he's Deshaun Watson.
Right.
He's elite. MJ on the turf.
That's right.
I mean, he's been in the NFL for 4 years. So this is something that he's gone through for 4 seasons. Of course, is he going to be a little bit rusty in terms of his throwing motions? Yes. That's what OTAs and camp is for. You get him ramped up in that period and just have him, stretch the shoulder out a little bit, get the trash cans out, start hitting bombs and dimes from 40-yarders. I'm sure he'll be fine. And here's the thing. With how active Kevin Stefanski has been through this whole process with Deshaun in terms of that meeting where they sat down and talked about RPOs for an hour, that's huge, because for the quarterback, what separates these guys is not their physical ability, because you look at most quarterbacks, of course they can run, of course they can throw, but how many people can sit in a film room, digest film, and improve your reactionary time to certain coverages, and whether they're faking the blitz or not, kind of things of those situations. So if he's been watching the film as he should be as an NFL quarterback, there shouldn't have any problem, any issue with that. Now, are there things that the league did last year defensively that we're only seeing last year compared to in years past? Of course. So hopefully he's studying up on that. Hopefully he's talking with his coaches and everything. But I'm not worried at all. Now, granted, would it be? I mean, I was more worried for a guy like Jamar Chase that sat out a whole college season, and then now he hasn't played football in 2 years, and he's entering as a rookie. Deshaun Watson did this for 4 years. He's also gone to the playoffs, and again, he's been extremely active with the team in this offseason. With the coach, with the workouts, he's meeting all his guys. He's throwing to people who are going to be familiar targets later this season. So not something that's a huge cause for concern.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know, and it's one of the things that it's been going around the Twitterverse right now, so it needs to be addressed.
One thing that I'm not concerned with at all is Nick Harris taking over the spot at starting center. How do you guys feel about my man Nick Harris?
I've been going. Oh yeah, for sure. I think it was this latest episode of not Down with the Browns, of building the Browns, where we saw how excited he is to get to work. Right? I mean, you saw how he was kind of a little bit jealous that he didn't get to the practice facility before Wyatt Teller did. The camera guy or whatever asked, is there something like a little game going on? And he's like, no, just simply for my own edification, that I want to be the first one here. Right? So it's something that that's something that I love to see too. We talked about pre-show. He's 6'1". Height-wise, he's not blowing anybody away height-wise. But you see the attention to detail that he wanted to put on muscle in building the Browns episode. He wanted to put on a lot of muscles, put on 15, 16 pounds of muscle, eat 7,000 calories a day, 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners, shakes in between. So it's like he really wants to work on mobility as well. So working with strength and conditioning coaches, just to be able to, fill in that role of potentially being the starting center for the entire 17-game season, right? Probably more, because I think that we'll go to the playoffs, but, I digress about that. But so I'm very comfortable with where we are with Nick Harris. I love what I have seen out of him, and we've talked about this before, but he's the one who was taking a lot of the practice snaps last year, right? It wasn't even J.C. Treader. So, I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to practice and the preparation that it takes to be a game starter. It's just about getting that starting reps right during games. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him out there a lot during the preseason, just to get a few of those in-game snaps, live situations, right? And so I'm very comfortable where we are with Nick Harris. I believe that he's going to be a great center for the Cleveland Browns for the next few seasons.
I got a late Christmas present. Now, we all were worried about, I mean, it was a loss at the time, that Green Bay game, but Nick Harris played well that game. So I saw Nick Harris play well on Christmas Day, and I think we're going to have the fruits of that labor carry over to this season. And also, too, gentlemen, there's some guards next to him named Joe Patonio and Wyatt Teller. So I think Mr. Harris is insulated with some good people beside him.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to have a fine season. And I think that's the last thing to worry about for the 2022 Cleveland Browns.
That's a very good point, to just say who's on your left and who is on your right.
You got dog on your left, you got another dog on your right, and you
Pro Bowl dogs
yourself.
Pro Bowl dogs too. For that fact. So that's going to help you out with your confidence. But go ahead, Matt.
So Nick Harris, I mean, not only did he show us all of last season, that he can be the starting center, not only by taking all of J.C. Treader's reps during the season and during camp, just because J.C. was so beat up. He also showed us in terms of mobility. Now, he's not the biggest center, but that's how some of these centers are made nowadays. The center is usually, and I can speak on this, I played it in high school and college, center's the smallest guy on the line. But here's the thing. Sometimes he needs to be the smallest center on the line because he's the guy coming off on double teams. He's going to be the guy, that's pulling around the corner. And you want somebody that's a little bit smaller, can move a little bit better in traffic. Somebody that can get up to the linebackers and do these kind of kick out blocks and be athletic enough to wrap around the corner. Not saying that some of these bigger guys can't, but when you get a small, more agile guy, it kind of works better when you're running zone. So the Browns run two concepts really in the run game. They run zone, which is two linemen are doubling up on one person. And usually the center or the tackle, just depending on where everybody's at on the defensive line, is coming up for the double, usually to a linebacker or like a safety in the box. So they run zone, or they're running like a counter or like a power pulling guard, pulling center kind of situation. So Nick Harris really does well out in space in terms of blocking, and he really moves up to the linebacker pretty well. Now, a lot of people again are going to say he's too small. Yes, but you also have guys like Jason Kelce and Tyler Lindenbaum, who is being heavily criticized right now, being drafted by the Ravens, saying that he wasn't really worth the pick. I mean, smaller centers are, I shouldn't say that they're in nowadays, but I mean that's just the reality. Now, one thing that does worry with his size, the pass rush, he didn't really do so hot. When he worked in at guard. Later in the season in 2020, but it's just one of those things where we just got to see it. Now, I do believe in Nick Harris, but they also bought insurance, right? Right. They got the center from Seattle. They drafted Dawson Deaton. So they have bigger centers. If the small center situation with Nick Harris doesn't work out, they have backups. But really, the center position is not anything that I'm worried about right now. I do think Nick Harris is going to get it done next season.
Just a quick question before you go, Christian. I just want to, since you're like our on the field pundit kind of thing, when it comes to things like that, and saying that you played center before, what would you consider, just for my own edification, just to know, what would you consider probably being the most important part of that position? Would it be the mobility? Would it be the power? Would it be the finesse to move about? What is in your point of view, what would be the most important, in just one thing that would be the most important thing that Nick Harris should concentrate on?
Well, I mean, he's already got mobility down. I would just say holding his water, because right. The one problem is, playing for the Cleveland Browns in terms of center, you're going against some nasty guys on the defensive line, and especially Pittsburgh. And yeah. I hate to bring up kind of painful memories here, but we all watched the game against Pittsburgh. We all watched that defensive line completely drive guys into the backfield in their pass rush. Yes. So, and that's why Nick Harris is trying so hard to put that weight on, because that's something that he wouldn't, he needs to do. He needs to bulk up a little bit. But hats off to him for doing that and transforming your body. I remember like trying to eat just calories of Hot Pockets trying to gain weight. It was terrible. It's awful.
It's Hot Pockets, a great way to do it. Yeah, especially
it's just like you have to just gain so much in such a quick amount of time, and you're out there on the field. You come back and you've lost 6 pounds. So
yeah, going against guys like the Travis Jones and the.
But in terms of what's important,
cadence is important. Cadence,
yes, cadence is important, but mobility as well. You got to be able to move those feet off the line of scrimmage, and you got to be able to get in guys' chests. And if you don't have the mobility, I mean, we saw it with J.C. Treader last season. I don't want to slander the guy, because he's done a great job ever since he's come to Cleveland. He's very smart.
Sounds like you're going to, though.
I'm going to.
Hey, that's Mr. President, Players Association President.
He didn't have any tread left on the tires, and it was just evident. He couldn't get out far enough, in front of defensive linemen to be able to hook them in this scheme.
Right.
If you can't move as an offensive lineman, you're going to get exposed on the field. And that happened a lot. I mean, look at the Raiders game. He could have sealed that. I mean, that third down stop was because J.C. Treader did not get far enough out and was able to hook the defensive lineman.
He picked the wrong guy.
So,
yeah.
He just Ed, it looks like he picks the wrong guy because it's in zone. Yeah. So he has to get far enough out there, which drove him to that man.
Essentially, though, he picked the wrong guy.
Yes, and no, but because again, I have to disagree there. Not to put the crap on you, Ed. Apologies. But he just couldn't get far enough out of the guy. So definitely mobility is number one in terms of like anywhere on the offensive line. You got to be able to get out in front of people.
Perfect.
And I really liked that Nick Harris he's took that next step himself. Like he's willing to put in that work, gaining that weight. We've not. I mean, as Browns fans, we've seen that guys come in. They're like, "Oh, it's just supposed to be handed to me. They've cut this guy. It's my job." Like they don't even take that next step. And he's like, "No, I'm going to earn it." But I mean, you go back to his days in college. He was like the best center in the Pac-12. I don't know if you said this. I kind of wasn't paying attention, Matt, because you were. But I'm just kidding. But he's the best center in the Pac-12 for 2 years. He only allowed 2 pressures in 2 years. That's insane. And him guarding our boy 4. I mean, let's go get us a Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
And
shout out to University of Washington for Nick Harris. There you go.
Oh yeah, exactly. And speaking of our boy 4, let's talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, after watching Building the Browns, you see that he's interacting with these rookies. Like, I mean, he even called Martin Emerson before he even got to Cleveland. He already reached out. And that, to me, just shows that he's ready to make this team his. And he's first one OTAs and all of that. So, I'm hyped that he's our quarterback, boys.
So am I. And I think that there is, strictly from a football perspective, I don't know about you guys, but doesn't it feel so good to know that there's a name under center that's like, hey, that guy can win you football games, right? Like that guy can go out and win you some football games. And I think that like there's no doubting that other teams, other fan bases now are saying, well, if that guy is playing, here's the Browns schedule. Right, like it's not like it's not like they're acknowledging it, right? It's more of an acknowledgement now, saying that the Cleveland Browns, hey, I think that they're going to be a problem because this division just got that much harder with Deshaun Watson under center. So, he's doing things, I know with his foundation, he's been doing a lot, providing like rent and mortgages for families in need. And I think that he's going to bring a lot of that to Cleveland, hopefully, when it comes to off the field, just to fix some of his, his image there. And, I know that the foundation's providing like college scholarships to students and things like that. So shout out to the foundation there. But I think it's important to, continue to just learn this in this offense. And it seems like he's becoming a leader, especially on Building the Browns. A lot of the clips that they're showing and a lot of the clips that they just shared today. I mean, that pass to Harrison Bryant, shout out to Harrison Bryant again. I mean, that was, on the money, gliding into the end zone. It just obviously, it's practice and things like that and walkthroughs. But, I to your point earlier, Mac, I mean, it's situations like this. This is where you get comfortable, right? This is where you don't get worried about sitting out a year. And by the way, it's not like when he was sitting out a year, he was just eating Cheetos on the couch, right? I mean, he was throwing to someone, I would imagine. He was training still, knowing that he had a lot of football left and he was going to be on a new team because that's the whole purpose that he wanted to sit out in the first place. So I'm pretty pumped. Just needless to say, I'm pretty pumped.
Well, when I see Deshaun Watson, it brings me back to my glory days when I remember watching Bernie Kosar. And everybody talks about Bernie and the Browns in the late 80s. And here's why they talk about him. Because the Browns made the playoffs in 85, 86, 87, 88, and 89. And that's what I think. See, that's the biggest thing about Deshaun Watson. See, I know you guys are like, oh, what's this about? You get your 2020 tastes of, playoffs and a nice victory in Pittsburgh. Don't get me wrong, a historic victory in Pittsburgh. And I don't want to take that away from Baker Mayfield. He was the quarterback, and I don't want to take that away. But at the same time, when you see Deshaun Watson, you're thinking, okay, this is the first year. You make the playoffs this year. There's no way probably that you're not going to make it the next 2 to 3 years easily. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Cleveland Browns and everything that they're trying to do, this is the year that some people might say, well, it might take them some time or this or that. If if you make the playoffs, there's really no excuses moving forward. And I think that's finally bringing that winning stability that we need. You know, how do you really change a culture? It isn't this up and down. And no offense to Baker, but I mean, there was some things. But when you're the quarterback, or expected to be the franchise quarterback, the one constant has to be you. You look at Green Bay. Okay, Aaron Rodgers is that constant. Okay, they're 3-13 without him. You put him on, they're 13-3. He's a constant to some level. With Baker, it was always up and down with him. You know, and I don't want to get into the excuses but that's how his play was, and the statistics show it was. With Deshaun Watson and even like Bernie and stuff like that. You know, you may not have the highest of the high. You may not have, even like Bernie didn't have Joe Montana play, but he had consistent play. Now I think Deshaun Watson, when it's all said and done, talent-wise, I mean, he's a top 4 quarterback in the league now. He's probably, I know this may shock a few people or whatever like that, but probably talent-wise, as soon as he plays his first game as a Cleveland Brown, he's probably the best Cleveland Browns quarterback that we've ever had. And I'm not talking about what he is going to accomplish, but if I was going to pick a quarterback and what they can do for one game, I would take Deshaun Watson over Bernie, over Otto Graham, over Brian Sipe, or Baker Mayfield. I'm sorry, but Deshaun Watson, I've seen the things he can do. He is a Michael Jordan on the field, and now he's got to go prove it with the accolades and the things that I think that
we're clipping this. Oh yeah.
But to say that he's not better than all those cats combined, you're fooling yourself. I'm so excited about Deshaun Watson on the field, and hopefully he can continue to have weekend with Bernie, fix his image, and let's rock and roll, guys. I want a Super Bowl.
So, do you think that like the progressive commercials go to Bernie? He takes the keys from Baker and gives them to Deshaun.
I mean,
you know what? That's natural transition. It seems, yeah.
I wouldn't even do that anymore. Like, I would just scrap it. Like,
or give it to Miles.
It's already bad enough that Baker is still in Cleveland after all this. Like, you got to just do something new completely altogether. Like, you want to paint this as a brand new era. So, like, let's just start acting like it. Now, in terms of Deshaun Watson, I'm not at all going to get into that off the field stuff because, frankly, it's probably not even going to be resolved until 2024, considering the fact for some odd reason the cases are now pushed till next year. Not sure how that makes sense, but
breaking news.
But in terms of who he is as a player, the only bad season that Deshaun Watson has had, now I'm talking about in terms of one loss, because if you look at statistics, he's been great his entire career. But really, it was just 2020. I mean, when he came into the league as a rookie, he lit it up until his knee injury. And then you had 2 seasons of playoff caliber football. And then you throw him into 2020 with, a decent, pair of weapons at Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller, but absolutely no run game, no offensive lineman that's, halfway competent outside of Laramie Tunsil. And then an extremely subpar defense, and he ends up 4-12. So, in terms of Deshaun Watson, the quarterback on the field, he's going to be great. Absolutely. I know that for a fact. Now what happens with his suspension, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. Let's be honest. It could go either way at this point. Now in terms of his off the field stuff, as he should, considering what he's facing and everything that he's going through off the field, I'm glad that he's taking some of that $230 million fully guaranteed. That was straight up handed to him. Now, how you feel about the contract is how you feel about the contract. Right. But glad that he's actually like pouring that back into the community and doing some good stuff there. Now, whether that's out of the goodness of his heart or trying to repair his image are 2 different stories. But glad to see that he's doing something good with it. Now, I will say this about Deshaun. He's always been active in Habitat for Humanity. He was a Habitat for Humanity kid growing up. You hear that story about Warwick Dunn buying his family, in there. That's great. It's great that Deshaun kind of carried into that and still doing work off the field. But it's just, again, it's that rain cloud, right? That's sitting over all of this. Now, will a 40 touchdown season and, playoff wins make you feel a little bit better? Yeah, but the rain cloud's still there.
Mac, I want to circle back to what you kind of were inferring about how you feel about the contract. You know how I feel about the contract? $230 million guaranteed. I feel really good about that. And it's not even for Deshaun Watson, who I feel really good about. I feel good about the rest of the NFL players that sacrifice their body and their lives every Sunday, risking injury or possible death with problems and breakages and things like that, if they're going to get fully guaranteed contracts and it's going to restructure negotiations on a new collective bargaining agreement when they go back to the table next time, and that's what these players deserve. You look at the NBA, you look at Major League Baseball and things like that. These players in the NFL are risking their lives, and they deserve fully guaranteed contracts. And if Deshaun Watson can be the pioneer and maybe make a few owners mad, but in the long run it benefits the players, I'm all for the players because they're the ones that make the league, and I think that's a good thing, and they should be thanking Deshaun Watson.
And to piggyback off that, you think about all these international games that they're talking about now. You know, they're going to make the NFL international, right? They're going to make it global. That's more money. That's more revenue. People start to look at these games like that. We look at Patrick Mahomes' contract, and we don't scoff at it now, but it's not the reaction that it was given back then when it was 10 years, $500 million. And now what it also does, it affects Lamar Jackson's contract negotiation, right? I was on the cover of Madden. I was an MVP. I want guaranteed money. Kyler Murray, I want guaranteed money. Joe Burrow, I want guaranteed money. It's so it's so crazy because you look at it, what this domino effect does. That's why other owners are upset. And that's why I'm saying I like this contract. Because guess what? Those three quarterbacks who are all in our division, obviously Kenny Pickett, we don't know how who knows if he's going to get a contract extension in 4 years. But I guess, tell you what, it's going to be based off of this guaranteed money that Deshaun Watson had. So we're sitting really pretty if you're looking 5 years down the line when we hopefully have some Super Bowl rings to talk about. So, but it looks like you want to say something. Go ahead, Mac.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I like the contract for that reasons. Obviously, I think it's hilarious watching the Ravens GM just absolutely sweat through his shirt thinking about Lamar's contract. And here's the thing. The issue why I have a problem with this is that they're banking so much on the QB position, especially with it being how uncertain it is, kind of off the field. But they're banking so much on the QB position to where they're not so focused on building an overall complete roster, and that's what I have the problem with because they're in a tug of war right now with Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, they're in the hole $7 million next year.
It's not going to happen, man.
They're in the hole $7 million next year. They already just $85 million.
Yeah, I see what you're. Can you name off the top of your head 10 players that were on the Patriots Super Bowl winning teams with Tom Brady? Let's say 3. I mean, when you talk about Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, it's the only teams that I can think about where they had a mediocre quarterback or whatever the case may be. He's like Joe Flacco with the Baltimore Ravens. Like you know what I mean? That's a situation, Mac, where you spread the wealth out, right? But when a situation you have a really good, now to your point, we don't know how good Deshaun Watson or his off the field issues are going to be. Right. But here's the thing: if he's fantastic, I don't give a flip about Jadeveon Clowney. Go ahead, Ed. Go ahead.
I need to call a timeout here. I'm hearing some things. Okay, Matt, you're saying, the Browns are putting everything into the quarterback position and not building a team. They had the team. It was Baker not living up to what he was supposed to do was holding us back. The fact that they're putting their money into a franchise quarterback for the first time in, I don't know, my lifetime, basically, is something they should have been doing a long time ago. Kudos to the Browns. Kudos to Andrew Berry. Kudos to Kevin Stefanski and Paul DePodesta. I don't know what you're saying. The Browns roster ready to rock and roll. Super Bowl, let's go.
Let's go, baby.
Wait, let Mac respond to that. I want to hear what Mac has to say.
So here's the problem, Ed, and I'm going to drop some knowledge on you. Okay, defense wins championships, and that's just a flat out fact.
We have a pretty good one too.
6 out of the 8 teams that have won the Super Bowl in 8 years past, 6 out of 8 of them have been in the top 10 in terms of run defense, whether that's yards per carry, whether that's total
defensive tackle time.
Yeah. So right now the Browns and I don't know if you've seen like any kind of charts, any of this stuff. The Browns have one of the worst defensive tackle groups in the league, and that's with adding Perry and Winfrey. So you have to be able to defend the run, and if you don't, the other team's going to win the time of possession, and you're toast. I mean, you're looking at a Browns defense that averaged 130 yards given up.
They were good last year, the last couple games. They were
Really?
good.
Did you see Pittsburgh when Najee Harris broke one off?
I saw the
Did you
offense
see
that
the
couldn't
game?
get a third down. Baker Mayfield throwing 4 interceptions against on Christmas Day. We didn't lose the games because of our defense those last 8 games.
Both of you have a point there, because if you played a little
Bingo.
more defense versus the Chargers, just a tad bit more, a drive or two, right? You know what I mean?
We didn't have any corners really that game though.
True.
Like I mean, we had AJ Green running CB1 out there.
Or
But that's
Baker
what- that's
Mayfield
what
was
I'm saying.
0-6 in the final 2
Well,
minutes. when
AJ
Deshaun
Green was
Watson's gonna
also one of the
score.
highest rated corners in terms of coverage last
Yeah,
year.
but he
Well,
was
that's
he was our
the
number one
max-
corner on the field. Like he's not supposed to be our number one. When we got Denzel got hurt, Ward was Ward, same guy.
But that's speaking to
Newsom was
Matt's
out.
point,
Like
right? It's defense, right? I mean, really. I mean, there's a couple of Mike Williams flying down the field. People drafted him in fantasy the next week because they think he's a god now. All you needed was 1 or 2 plays in that game, and the Browns scored 45.
Hey, Manny, you know what defense? You know what dogs stand for?
What's that?
Defense always wins games. That's what dogs stand for.
Well, that goes to the next point.
Yeah,
Like,
you said that right. So, yeah, I appreciate that.
Not
hey,
so-
I was like, dang it, Ed.
And here's the thing. Let me just add on top of
Not
it.
so fast, my friend.
Those same run defense statistics that I just named off, the Browns were outside of the top 10 in all 3 categories, and they didn't get better on paper.
Yeah.
So
What-
The eye test. The eye
what's
test.
what's gonna happen next year? Especially you have a guy now. And you guys are gonna hate me for bringing this guy up, but Jadeveon Clowney's still not here. So the edge problem short term is not solved at all.
Oh,
and now you have this
Brother,
big.
this guy stinks.
Yeah, bring it on, because I'm one of the few people out there that honestly thinks that the defensive line is worth something. And I mean, look at the Rams, Tampa Bay. I mean, Eli Manning would not have 2 Super Bowls if it wasn't for that defensive line. And now you're going into a season without Jadeveon Clowney and with a huge question mark at defensive tackle, because Perry Winfrey's great, but his run defense isn't so good. Sheldon Day has been a rotational player his whole career. We
Jordan
still don't
Elliott.
know
I mean,
what
what do we
Jordan
know
Elliott
about Jordan Elliott?
We should trade
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson for defensive
But-
tackle.
Max, like, that's not
okay,
It's-
here's my thoughts on the
That's a good
defensive
point. That's a
line.
good point.
I think that the additions that the Browns have made in Alex Wright, Chase Winovich, Isaiah Thomas, those are all going to equal up to a Jadeveon Clowney, because they're going to be rotating much more, having much fresher bodies on the field, and much younger and less. Like, I mean, you'll have Chase Winovich under contract, I believe, this year, next year. You'll have Isaiah Thomas and Alex Wright for the next 4 years. So, I mean, they're just going to build that up to replace. Because, I mean, Clowney in like 2 years is going to be, what, 32? He's 29, 30?
Correct.
Yeah.
So he's going to be older. So they're going to go with the more younger. Because when Andrew Berry was picking, he wasn't picking just for needs now. He was picking for needs
For the future.
later.
For the future.
Like, I mean, the Jerome Ford. I think that just means, as I said last week, I think that means Kareem Hunt's probably gone within the next year or two. And they're grooming him to take over at running back 2 position. But anyways, I think that you'll see another guy get picked up, a younger guy, probably not like a Akeem Hicks. But I do know that when I don't think the Browns are going to do something, they do it. So I don't think we're going to get Akeem Hicks or Jadeveon Clowney. But I really do think we're going to get another like younger defensive tackle that's really good at the run stop, because everybody I've seen that we've gotten at defensive tackle has been really great at pass rush. You've not really seen that defensive or run stopper defensive tackle just yet. So I think that that's what the next move is going to be.
Would it make question for you, Mac? Would it make you feel more comfortable? God forbid, sorry if the guinea pigs are too loud. Would it make you more comfortable if Jadeveon Clowney doesn't come back, but Alex Wright is comparable? Like, would it make it feel a little bit better if he can, he doesn't have to be the greatest guy, but can grow into that role a little bit better? Or would you still want somebody to be brought in like Jadeveon Clowney for the next 2 years? Or are you saying something now, or are you?
My thing is that there has just got to be, you got to either bring in Jadeveon Clowney or you have to bring in another defensive tackle, because you can't have a question mark at both. Now, when you look at the defensive end, and Christian made an excellent point here, they have Chase Winovich, who 2 years ago had 37 pressures, which is a Clowney type production on the defensive line there. Because here's the thing: everybody wants to look at sacks, but pressures are more important because pressures cause those errors,
Yes.
those turnovers. And turnovers are key. I can bring up as many stats as I want, but turnovers, when you get the ball back, that's huge because you again want to win time possession. So you have him, you have a guy named like Alex Wright, and then you have Isaiah Thomas, who was an excellent pass rusher at Oklahoma, and led the team in sacks. He had 3 forced fumbles last year. So I do think between Winovich, Alex Wright, and Isaiah Thomas, there can be Myles Garrett's running man emerging out of those 3. Now, will it come right away? No, but with enough I feel like they can get enough production out of those 3. So, if they decide to go the route where they, get a defensive tackle. Now, granted, I really don't think that they're going to get I know this sounds ridiculous because I've been sitting here preaching run defense, but I don't think that they're going to get that big body kind of guy because I don't think that Joe Woods wants that in his defense. It is ridiculous.
It seems like he doesn't. Yeah.
It seems like he doesn't want it. And, if you look at, the bigger defensive tackles that have come through here in the past, it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Andrew Billings.
So
couldn't really
I got an idea. Sorry to cut you off, Mac.
No, go
But
ahead.
what do you think? Okay, I just thought about this. What if Joe Woods, Kevin Stefanski, and Andrew Berry are waiting to address the defensive tackle position till after camp cuts? When you start seeing the rosters get trimmed down,
Makes
these
sense. Get a
veterans
veteran.
get cut. Like you might get one of these
That's
a guy from a Vikings, maybe like somebody like from them, because they've got a lot of defensive linemen that they've got on that team now. So
That's
they
a
may
good
be looking to
point.
cut, go younger.
Probably that's actually
And
when
this-
is that cut? Is that June 1st or when is that cut?
No,
Does anybody know?
that's you still got a while before they start doing that. Like that's when I think that like around the
Really
they might trade Baker Mayfield in that same time,
right.
or maybe they
Okay.
can package a team that needs a quarterback because their quarterback got hurt in camp
Right.
for a defensive tackle that the team's looking to trade or cut.
I'll tell you what right now, and I think if you add in a Jadeveon Clowney or a defensive tackle help, Jadeveon Clowney / defensive tackle help for Mac's point, plus for my own edification, somebody else in that wide receiver room, I won't say anything else for this offseason. I'm like, listen, guns loaded, ready to go. I don't think the Browns need anything else. But that's just me. I mean, I want a run stopping defense to Mac's point. I'm sick and tired of everybody running all over the Browns defense. But on the flip side, that 15-10 game versus Pittsburgh, I was pissed because we couldn't score. So I want both. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm so selfish in saying I want both because I do want that defense. I do. But then at the same time, it's like because the defense versus Chargers. But then there's sometimes I'm like, where's our offense at, right? And that's for Pittsburgh. And it's like, I don't know. I just feel going into the playoffs, especially when you're looking at that AFC semifinal game with the Chiefs and Buffalo Bills, wouldn't you love to have some defense or, just one defense to stop? Ask Buffalo if they wouldn't like. They keep talking about that stupid coin toss, and I'm all about play some defense.
Cincinnati
with
stopped
13,
Kansas City.
60.
Exactly.
Oh, that's Cincinnati.
Exactly.
Cincinnati. So I'm like, you're talking about coin toss. I'm talking 13 seconds. Patty Mahomes went down on the field on you, and
They
you
didn't
would've
run the
loved
ball
some
either.
defense
Though.
there.
They passed it.
True. I love this side smirk from Ed.
You're
They
the
did. Hey, that is true. You're not getting,
Yeah, so
but,
Mac's all worried about the 130 yards they're giving up on the ground, which is obviously an alarming stat, and you want to get that sucker down. But I would rather give up 130 yards on the ground than give up 400 through the air. It's still a passing league, and if you have somebody like Deshaun Watson,
but studies show that if you go over 100 yards in a game, you're losing that game 75% of the time,
Listen, bro,
which
it
is
don't
higher
matter.
than
The Browns-
if someone passes over 300 yards.
The Browns have lost games. It don't matter what study.
Any
It
kind
could
of
be
way.
like
yeah,
a study could show that
field goals,
that
like
these
anything.
stats would be like 400 and like one loss, like 400
Yes,
wins
the
and one
Chargers
loss,
game.
and the Browns would be that one loss.
There's
Like-
never been. It was like 405-0 when you had no turnovers and you scored over 40. and
Yeah.
no team has ever lost 403-0. And it's like the
No
Browns
team
are now the
has
one
got
team.
4 turnovers and then still lost.
Hey, Manny,
Yeah,
I want to
that's
defend
another-
myself.
Hey, Mac. Hey, that's offense. I feel like
Yeah, it is
one of them defense. One of them's defense.
Manny.
45-0 turnovers. So it's like that's defense.
Let me defend myself real quick. It took me this long to come back with something because I felt like I got checkmated earlier when I said defense always win games. You're like, well, that actually helps Mac out. But think about this. I said defense always wins games. I didn't say championships. We got to think bigger in Cleveland.
Oh, okay. Let me go back to Deshaun Watson real quick
Go ahead.
and
Yeah,
why
go ahead.
this accusation was so big. If you go look at Deshaun Watson's stats, there's been numerous seasons that he's had where he would have broke franchise records, touchdowns,
absolutely.
passing yards. Like 2020, dude, he would have shattered both.
All of them.
So I mean, right there, like as Ed said earlier, he might be the greatest quarterback this franchise has seen.
Oh, well, he will absolutely be the best quarterback in franchise history. Now, a lot of old heads don't like me because I said that Brian Sipe is kind of overrated. He was. He had one good
Buddy,
season.
no.
Thank you.
Oh, buddy.
Breakout news.
Coverage to Ozzie Newsome. So, now Bernie had his limitations, but what made Bernie great was how smart he was on the football field
And the run game.
ability to find the open guy. So then you have terrible quarterback play up until Baker. Now, I still believe that when healthy, he's easily a top 15 quarterback. But
Yeah, I agree.
Again,
I agree.
there's also a big step between Baker's best and Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun Watson is giving somebody now. The Cleveland hasn't seen a mobile quarterback like Deshaun Watson since Otto Graham, and that's back in black and white when football was more comparable to rugby than it is now. And in today's
The internet wasn't a thing yet.
so yeah, well, I mean, obviously the internet wasn't a thing in the '60s. I mean, maybe in the military, I don't know. Either way,
I wasn't alive. so-
Deshaun Watson, the minute he steps on the field, he's going to be the best quarterback the Browns have ever had in terms of just his overall skill set. Because not only can he throw, but he can also run. He's extremely mobile, and he's an absolute Houdini in the pocket when it comes in, in terms of escapability. Now, you add that running ability with an already top tier Browns rushing attack, which, it was top 3 last year in terms of running the football. So you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in an RPO-based offense with Deshaun Watson. Look out. So
it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see, and I hope that we get that second half pass defense of the Cleveland Browns, edit it with a little bit of a run defense, and you add in that splash of Deshaun Watson. It's going to be stuff that we have not seen. I don't think, like you said before, I don't think ever. So I think we're in for a wild ride. I don't know if we have any questions or anything, but. That's me looking for the other teams in the AFC North because we're going to be blowing them out. Honestly, I truly believe.
You guys hear that? It's a train, baby. Get on.
Get on the train, baby. Get on the train.
Browns going to Super Bowl, baby.
I love it.
But for our listeners out there, let's get some questions going. We'll answer a few questions if you guys got any. We're on a little delay. For you guys, but just hit us with some questions. Yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of that. So while we're waiting on them, let's just go ahead. Let's
Hey guys, Summer had a question. I see. She asked, "Who do you think's gonna finish in last place in the AFC North?" Now I said Cincinnati, and here's why. I said they're gonna have a Super Bowl. Yeah, here's what I think, guys. I think they're going to have a Super Bowl hangover. I like Pittsburgh's defense. Now, I don't like their quarterbacks, but I think they can play above 500, around 500. So they could be 9-8. I think the Bengals could be 8-9. I am telling you, Super Bowl hangover, no joke. Yeah. The Bengals will be my last place team in the AFC North, and I know I'm going to take a lot of hell for it.
We've got to clip that first and foremost. Secondly, also with wasn't there? What's the stat? Does anyone know? Maybe I have to look it up. I'm so sorry, but maybe one of the listeners know. But I have to look up that stat that says like teams that go to the Super Bowl for the first time and lose or something like that.
I think Kansas City's like the
Chiefs were the
to make
first
the
team to
playoffs.
make the playoffs after losing the Super Bowl the year before because it never happens.
Okay. So that's to Ed's point.
It's almost near impossible in terms of
I think Tom Brady said false to that stat, but we'll rock with it.
Ooh.
Well, they
No,
can't say with
because
the
it
last.
was
no. He went.
after he lost.
Oh,
the
lost.
Blew out-
My bad.
Yeah. He
Blew out
never
his
went.
knee
He
the
never
following
went
year.
back the year after or something
Yeah.
like that.
And then after
I thought
the
Kansas
Giants'
City
second
won their
time-
first one though. Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah,
never
they
mind.
won the
Forgot
first
Tampa
one. Mo
Bay.
Parents
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
I have first and foremost. I want to PSA public disclaimer. I this is going to be an extremely tight division. Each team has a reason and facts as to why they might not finish last or might finish a little higher, whatever the case may be. But if you had to have me give a realistic expectation, it has to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. It has to be. And I know this feels weird. I know this feels uncomfortable to say. I know everyone, including myself, I never want to say that because for some reason or another, Mike Tomlin, does something crazy where their team is never last. So, but hey, it's time. It's time. And Ben Roethlisberger's not on that roster for the first time since like 03 or whatever he was drafted. I think it was 02 or 03 or whatever. So Kenny Pickett, I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. It will help that he played in that stadium. I don't think they're going to be, 2-15. I'm not saying that. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's time for you to understand what the basement feels like. It's a little bit wet down there. It's a little bit, so get a teddy bear.
Cold.
You know what I mean? Get a little cold. I'll send you a blanket. I'll send you the blanket that I have on the wall.
We ain't
But
sending him a
enjoy
blanket.
last place. And I'm saying this. My wife's not home, so I can say the Steelers are going to be in last.
Man, he's looking over his shoulder.
He'll be sleeping on the Tim couch.
I only say Pittsburgh out of process of elimination here. Now, to me, right now, and you guys are not going to like me saying this, but the Ravens, to me, have kind of a step over everybody on the AFC North. They have J.K. Dobbins coming back, Lamar Jackson.
Easiest schedule.
They're going to have the easiest schedule. Now, in terms of running the football, everybody looked at Hollywood Brown leaving and they said, oh, well, Greg Roman is such a terrible offensive coordinator, when really he took an extremely raw running back, Lamar Jackson, and molded him into an MVP. So, you're taking away kind of and you guys might disagree with me, a subpar wide receiver in Hollywood Brown. Yeah, he's fast, but he doesn't exactly have the best kind of route running. So, you add Tyler Lindenbaum in the draft, and you already make, a good run offense, because even with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, their top two running backs out last year, they still ran the ball pretty well. And, Mark Andrews, who's like 7'11",
Yeah.
So, I think the Ravens are going to be pretty solid next year. Now, in terms of Cincinnati, yeah, they address the offensive line, but that team's only going to go as far as Joe Burrow is going to take them, and he's had 3 knee injuries in 2 years. So I can't imagine this game going on much longer in his career. And honestly, I really do hope that this guy stays healthy. Now, obviously, you have the Browns, who got Deshaun Watson, and if he plays all 17 games, they're going to be a playoff team. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That leaves Pittsburgh.
They win their division.
Pittsburgh did not address their offensive line. Najee Harris, even though he was one of the best running backs in the league last year, had a terrible average because he was getting stuck in the backfield.
You remind me of Trent Richardson.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. They used him a lot in the past in the flat. Yeah.
Now, can he make a guy miss? Was he patient? Did he have all the attributes that you needed in a running back? Yes, but his offensive line was not taking him anywhere. And now you add a rookie quarterback who's throwing wide receiver gloves.
Baby hands.
It's
Well,
it's really hard to say that Pittsburgh's going to be a playoff team.
yeah.
And that kind of, to me, it's the division winner, and then you have 2 wild card teams.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is not making the playoffs next year.
See,
So by process of elimination, that puts them in last.
okay, so here's where I beg to differ from you guys, and I agree with Ed, actually. The Cincinnati Bengals will have the hardest schedule in the AFC North.
That's true.
I think I agree with him on I do agree with him on the Super Bowl high. They're going to get their teeth.
The
into them
hangover,
early.
baby. It's
Yeah.
the hangover.
They're going to
It's
have
gonna happen
film
early.
on Jamar Chase. That connection with Joe
Yeah,
Burrow. They're going to have
exactly.
film. Finally, they're going to have film. Full season of film.
And, I don't know. I think that the hype's going to get to them. They're going to get a little cocky. I've seen this before with the Browns. They get a little cocky. Stuff starts to go south. Locker room starts to go
High
at each other.
expectation.
Exactly. But also going to the Steelers, I don't think Mike Tomlin will allow his team to lose. I think that man will either he'll be third and make the playoffs or third and miss the playoffs barely.
Yep.
So, because like that defense is way too nasty, and he'll put Kenny Pickett in the right situation. He had a fat lard that was 932 years old out there, and they made the playoffs. So
yeah, but
he can
was
do it with
still better
small
than
hands.
Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. I mean,
Yeah, he
you
was.
look at
Yeah, he was.
2019.
Yeah, he was.
If the Browns didn't blow it,
Mhm.
Pittsburgh would have not had the record that they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's just plain and simple. Now, granted, they do still have that defense, but Stephon Tuitt coming off an injury, he's older. Cam Hayward, a little bit banged up, he's older. You know, you have TJ Watt. They
did
added
get Miles Jack though, Mac. They got Miles Jack.
They did. But there's also a reason why Jacksonville, you know, didn't want to pay him.
Mhm.
They don't have stars on that defense.
Mhm.
So you know,
Well,
they were
had Joe
definitely
Schobert last year.
Who's their defensive coordinator now?
You're talking about Steelers?
Isn't it Brian Flores?
No, Brian Flores is the
No, he's a linebacker coach.
Well,
Linebacker
but he's going to be in the defense.
But he's gonna, he's gonna help out that defense. Oh my goodness, he's gonna help out that defense.
Yeah.
And it's gonna help out a lot too because guess what? Interdivision we're playing. We're playing the AFC East. So, and he's fairly familiar with the AFC East. So that's gonna help him out there. So you know what? That goes to your guys' point. And unfortunately, what also goes to your guys' point is I watched that game. I was at that Pittsburgh Steelers game with the Seahawks, and I saw how many chances that defense gave Ben Roethlisberger to win that football game in overtime. And then at one point, they were just like, you know what TJ Watt was like, I'll take it myself. Forced a fumble on Geno Smith at the 10-yard line. They kicked the field goal. Boswell came out, and they virtually won the game because of solely defense. So you might need a lot of that, but you know, I still have them last. I'm not going to change my mind. After watching that live, I'm still not going to.
And I kind of want the Steelers to do good. I want them to be third because this draft class next year is so stout at quarterback, and I think that if Kenny Pickett's good enough to win with them, you know, quote unquote,
true,
they'll pass on like a Will Levis, a Bryce Young, a CJ Stroud, and they won't get that like elite quarterback that we all think that's going to be in that draft class next year.
Yeah. Shout out to Will Levis, by the way, and shout out to your
boy.
Shout out to your boy from Kentucky. There you go.
But yeah, I feel like the Browns have a good shot at winning this division, just because I mean it don't look like Deshaun's going to get suspended this year. Yeah,
We'll see
about that. But you know, dang, we've already been here on here an hour and 7 minutes.
Wow, we had a good conversation. That's why.
Yeah. We didn't have many topics today.
Yelling at each other.
Yeah, that's what. This is a good one, man.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I think the producer stinks because you had to do 2 takes to pull up that meme. You failed the first time. You had to exit it out.
All right, so we're gonna.
I thought honestly you were gonna boot me and then keep me out.
Talking bad on my name again. Why? Let's see what happens. No, but it's all love. We got the Southern Dog, the Manny Maxwell, Ed in Columbus, Mac the Buffalo. So it's been a great episode, boys.
Absolutely.
We got down with the Browns.
Down
Go
with the Browns,
Browns!
baby. Go Browns. Go Browns.
Go
baby.
Browns. Ooh, ooh.